So we'll begin today's Sutta class, and today we are, I think, on page 116 of our book that we're following, Social and Communal Harmony. And so I'll begin by reading the Sutta. So we're halfway down the page. So this sutta is from the Anguttara Nikaya, and it's the Anguttara 20, though there are 10 things. That's interesting. Anguttara 20, number 31. And it is called the Reasons for the Training Rules. So, the Venerable Upali approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, Bhante, on how many grounds has the Tathagata prescribed the training rules for his disciples and recited the Patimokkha? So this is obviously the training rules, refers here to the monastic training rules, and in particular the Patimokkha rules is what this sutta, this question is about. So it's a very interesting. This is actually the first. Usually when we have Vinaya classes, this is like the favorite sutta that starts off Vinaya classes. So I've heard it many times, on many occasions. But so this is very interesting because it is a sutta on why we practice the Vinaya, on how many grounds has the Tathagata prescribed the training rules for the disciples and recited the Patimokkha, meaning how many grounds is like on what are the reasons for having these, for us, 311 rules. I mean, yeah, and that's a lot of rules, people say. So, but why do nuns keep 311 rules and monks keep 227 rules? On what grounds? So this is like a very interesting sutta. So it is Upali on 10 grounds that the Tathagata has prescribed the training rules for his disciples and recited the Patimokkha. So there's not one reason, but 10 reasons, that very good reasons for why nuns keep 311 rules and recite it every, when they're 4 nuns, they recite it every Patimokkha. Every 2 weeks, we revise our rules, or we remind ourselves of our rules, and what we call confess or acknowledge any ones that we have sort of missed, those that are for acknowledged. There are various levels of rules, but that's another story. Okay, so what 10 are the rules why are these 10 the rules have been prescribed? So the first one, for the well-being of the Sangha. 2, for the ease of the Sangha. 3, for keeping recalcitrant persons in check. 4, so that well-behaved monks can dwell at ease. 5, for the restraint of influxes pertaining to this present life. 6, for the dispelling of influxes pertaining to future lives. 7, so that non-believers might gain faith. And 8, for increasing the faith of the believers. 9, for the continuation of the good Dhamma. And 10, for promoting discipline. It is on these 10 grounds that the Tathagata has prescribed the training rules for his disciples and recited the Patimokkha. So it may seem that these training rules are only about nuns and monks, but actually, you know, as this book is really about, is for we all live in, you know, whether it's in a workplace or society in general, there are sort of sometimes unwritten codes of conduct and unwritten rules that we kind of adhere to as groups of people. So it's really interesting how we keep these rules, whether it's in a workplace or whether it's it's formal, as like the Vinaya is. So, but how do we hold rules, and how do we relate to another person when there is a rule involved or an unwritten code of conduct? Yesterday, Paul was here and he was talking about his office, and you know, the disharmony there is. I'm sorry, Paul, if it's private or not, but anyway, no problem. But yeah, the disharmony there is when there is a group of one person that thinks this way, another person thinks that way, and it's very difficult when you're the one in the middle and you've had to hear this person's version of how things should be, and then you have hear that person's version of how things should be. So these unwritten rules are something that makes our life, it guides our life and makes our life easier. So this, I think, is actually, you know, like one of the reasons that the Buddha gives is that for the first one is for the well-being of the Sangha. So like the situation Paul was in, it's just simply having certain ways of doing things. So for example, don't keep your dirty mugs for 3 days in the office while you've gone home, you know, over the weekend. You come back and there's like a dirty coffee mugs on people's desks. I don't know. This is a thing. But, you know, it's just simply for just the well-being. It's for you don't have to hear one person saying, that person left them more coffee mugs lying around, you know. And you get, they did it again, sort of thing. So it's just simply for our well-being. So a lot of these rules, there's different types of rules, but they're just simply so that we have a common understanding, so that the dishes are done at a certain time and that they're not left there until the next morning and somebody's irritated that the dishes haven't been done again. So therefore, just generally, not that something is wrong about it, but it's for just the overall ease and harmony of a group of people. So a lot of Vinaya rules, and Venerable Canda was saying the other day that Vinaya rules, they really fall into 2 categories. There are rules that are ethical, and that there are rules that are just simply social norms. So there's nothing ethically wrong about leaving a coffee cup for 3 days in your office, you know, while everybody walks around it. But it is just it's nothing wrong, but it's just for everybody's just common understanding. So that's the first reason that rules are there. It's just for general well-being and harmony and living together. So it's not that you're that it's bad or it's evil, that often we get it. Oh no, I didn't do the right thing. I'm bad for having left coffee cups lying around. I'm saying this because my cousin once was driving me and our abbot back to the airport, and he said, "Gosh, it sounds like monasteries sound just like my office." Anyway, and it was the coffee cup. So so the first reason is that it's just generally for our ease and well-being, nothing wrong, but it's just easy to have a common understanding that you don't have to worry, you don't have to worry. It would be nice to have a set of rules for families, isn't it? Lord, it'd be nice. My mother wouldn't be shouting at my dad so much. Why have you once again left your mugs lying around in front of the TV? Just bring it to the kitchen. Anyway, you can't do that. Yes, so that's the first reason. So the second reason is for the ease of the Sangha. So it's very similar to the first one. It's for the ease of the Sangha. So like in our monastery, when I come in the morning, I know it's so nice. I know somebody has, this is in Dhammasara, there's like, we all have our jobs. I know that someone has set up my seat and opened the windows, and I don't have to think about it. I have to come up in the morning and go, gosh, where am I going to sit today? Or where's the cushions or anything like that. It's just so easy because it's all set up. I don't have to worry. Or over here, Grace rings the bell at 7 o'clock and we have breakfast. So that is very easeful. Don't have to worry where my meal comes from that day. I don't have to go onto the streets and start begging. So that is very easeful. So that's the second reason for having certain sort of routines and rules. So the third one is for keeping recalcitrant persons in check. Aha. So for keeping recalcitrant persons in check. What's recalcitrant?
Impulsive, or people that don't want to behave properly. Rebellious.
Recalcitrant persons.
Me as a teenager.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess when you this is always the case, there are rules and someone says, but why are we doing this? It's stupid. Or, I mean, you always have a really, yeah. So, so it brings to your mind, why am I not wanting to follow this rule? Is it because I'm just being, I have a good reason, or is it coming from recalcitration?
Recalcitration. That's nice.
Not that I know what recalcitrant means, but it's good to reflect, this is not to judge. There you go. Who with an obstinately uncooperative attitude. Okay. It happens to all of us. I see it in myself. I'm not going to do that. Good luck to you. I'm off. But, yeah, so just to notice that, not to judge others by it, or judge. It's very easy to judge others, but so it's not to judge others, but to notice it in ourselves. What is our motive? Is it obstinately uncooperativeness? And in which case, yeah, that's what the rule brings up for us. What is our relationship to it? Not that it's particularly right or wrong, but how are we relating to it? What part of us is being recalcitrant. What part of us is like, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, to notice that that mind state is very useful. Rules do that to people. So yes. So the fourth one, so that well-behaved monks can dwell at ease. That's nice. So that's what Paul, for example, wouldn't be suffering at work if there wasn't others would be at ease. You know, one person isn't complaining about the other person, and yeah, yes, those who are really not wanting to get their heads filled with complaints can dwell at ease. So that is very nice when people live in harmony. So 6, for the dispelling of influxes pertaining, 5, the restraint, the restraint of influxes pertaining to this present life. So that is a lot of what the Vinaya and even, you know, the precepts that we keep are. It's not that it's bad to eat after midday, or it's bad to sleep on high-end luxurious beds when you keep the 8 precepts, or however many precepts you keep, or it's bad to handle money, or you know, or listen to music, or what, all these things, but they help us to restrain our mind. And Venerable Canda has been preparing her talk for Sunday at the London Insight, and telling me all about sense restraint. So, but this is what the rules help us to do. This is what keeping the precepts help us to do. It helps us to prepare our mind for something more beautiful, which is samadhi. So the Vinaya and the rules are there to help us to notice, where am I going out into the world? Where am I? Where are my senses going? How am I using my mind? How am I? Oh, to kick it makes sense. Okay.
No.
Yeah. So this is kind of the basis of our meditation practice. Like when Chanda's talks will be on Sunday about that, keeping sila for us 311 rules, but however many rules Vinaya you keep, it is the basis for a mind that is ready for meditation. We spend so much of our time sitting there trying to meditate, trying to get our breaths to one place, get our mind to stop thinking, get ourselves to stop being hard on ourselves, all these problems that we have in meditation. But it is actually the Vinaya and the Sila that we keep that is the platform, the basis, the foundation on which the mind is developed. So this is what the Buddha says. It is for the restraint of influxes pertaining to this life. Yeah. Did you want to say anything? Okay. So we'll just keep going. And at the end, people can say things. And so the next one is interesting too. For the dispelling of influxes pertaining to future lives. So it's for the long haul. It's not, we are training ourselves in a particular way. And often we think, you know, how come I behave this way? Or it's because we've been doing it for lifetimes. If you've been, certain habit patterns that you have, you don't know why, because it's just because you've been doing it for lifetimes. So the way we behave now, the way we look after our minds now is going to be how in the next life or lives to come, is that's how your mind is going to incline. So it's very powerful, really. Every moment that we restrain our minds is heading it in a particular direction. So not to be underestimated, the power of restraint and the power of training your mind on very simple things on a day-to-day practical level. Yeah. So number 7, so that non-believers might gain faith. Wow. So whether you work in a organization or whether you are working for the Sangha, you have a reputation when especially as a Sangha member, when you see Sangha members not keeping the Vinaya, it is very, very sad and very bad karma, quite honestly, for the Sangha, because someone loses faith in something that is very, very profound, very important, very powerful. And we've seen in churches and even in Sri Lanka, all institutions, when the community, the leaders of the community, don't act with integrity, don't keep the Vinaya, don't keep the Sila, it kills the whole society. I think I know Ireland, which was such an Irish Catholic country, and the way they disparage priests now because of all the stories there are of abuse in the church. But it's tragic. I used to go to Ireland a lot because my ex-husband was Irish. So interestingly, he's a monk. He's a monk now. He's a Buddhist monk, not a Catholic monk. Anyway, he's a Buddhist monk, and he says in Ireland, they despise really someone in a robe. And if he sits on a bus, people don't want to sit next to him because he's Irish, mind you, because he's wearing a robe, a Buddhist robe, even not even a collar. Yeah. And priests can't. This is a couple of years ago. My mother-in-law used to say that priests can't walk on the streets of Dublin at night, that they'd get things thrown at them. So this is the actual reality of when the people lose faith. So it's quite real. Yeah. Yeah, and even in Sri Lanka, I mean, when my uncle gets so angry at monks that misbehave or are in politics, and so yes, it's not a pleasant thing. Not a pleasant thing. And even in an organization, when you hear of an organization at work or whatever that is that they're not treating their people well, or they are not honest, there's just a distaste, and it bears on the reputation of your institution, of your company, of your family, when you hear they are not behaving well. So yeah. So, and it's for the increasing of the faith of the believers. And so when you do see monastics behave beautifully, it is so inspiring. It draws you to the Dhamma. It draws you to want to emulate them. It draws you to see, what is it that this person has that I don't have? I want to be like that. I want to be peaceful. I want to be at ease in the world. So when you see someone who is living beautifully, you inspire others to follow whatever it is you're doing, and that's one of the great things that the Sangha does, that anybody does when they act beautifully, that they draw others to follow them, to learn what they have learned and find happiness in the same way that they have found happiness. Yeah. So number 9, for the continuation of the good Dhamma. So this is what we have been doing for 2,500 years, from one person to another. The word of the Buddha has been handed down. Very often it is the Sangha that is the custodians of the Dhamma. It is the Sangha that memorizes it, that studies it, and that passes it on to the little Samaneras and Samaneris, where the next generation. And the Sangha has been the custodians of the Dhamma for 2,500 years. So it's a real it's no small thing that we have the Dhamma to so many years later. So for the continuation of the good Dhamma, and for promoting discipline. Wow, I wonder what the Pali of that was. Sounds like, promoting discipline. I guess promoting Vinaya, or promoting that sila is valuable. Maybe that's what the point is. Anyway, sounds like promoting discipline. So it is on these 10 grounds that the Tathagata has prescribed the training rules for his disciples and recited the Patimokkha. Yeah, so that's quite a lot. And like I said, usually when we have a Vinaya class, we spend like a whole 1 hour on this particular sutta, or probably a couple of days even. But there's a lot in there. And to me, it took many, many years to get my head around why and how one holds a rule, and how one relates to rules, and how one, how one keeps them. So it was, took many years for me to actually understand this sutta. Even I probably don't, but anyway, even at least to kind of get my head around it. So, yes, so I'm just, we'll stop here, and maybe if anyone has anything to ask or to...
Can I come to the thing on the box? And answer that?
Okay.
Because it's been there a while.
Okay.
I come to the box, yes. I just want to answer this one. And then,
Sure.
So this is just really interesting, because a couple of people have given other definitions of recalcitrant. So one, the root, someone's saying, is to kick, to kind of kick a storm, kick against, like to kick your way out of something, which is really interesting. That's probably what teenagers tend to do. And this is even more interesting, that recalcitrant has calcium in its root, which means hard. If you think of something that's calcified, right? The hard mind, the calcified mind that won't change. Oh no. Which is very interesting, that the idea of a hard mind is actually there in the word recalcitrant, because recalcitrant, isn't it? Because a lot of what I teach, and Ajahn Brahm as well, who I'm inspired by, teaches about softening the mind, and the Buddha as well, right? He's teaching how to purify the mind from those impurities. And the analogy he gives is like purifying gold of the impurities that harden it and make it brittle. So that's really interesting. And then the same person's asking, what happens if my recalcitrant mind doesn't want to be restrained? So no problem, because a recalcitrant mind is a mind that doesn't want to be restrained. That's exactly what a recalcitrant mind is. So the obvious solution there is to purify and soften it. The recalcitrant mind won't be trained. But the thing is, the mind is not fixed. It's not one way. It's changing constantly. And there are certain things we can do to soften it. So don't try to train a mind when it's in that state. I think at that point, you have to just observe, oh, look, this is the mind that's kicking a fuss. This is the mind that's pushing back, on wanting to be trained. So probably it's because you're pushing it too hard. That's what happens again with teenagers. I mean, if somebody would have said, well, don't go out and don't dress like that, I would have kicked back and dressed even more punk rocky or glam rocky. So that wouldn't work, and if we treat our minds that way and tell them not to be the way they are, our minds are not going to be happy with us, because it's not our mind's fault. It's causes and conditions, and it's mostly the causes and conditions you've put in there. So the most important thing is to just notice the state of that mind and notice the suffering of it, the contraction of it, the kind of brittleness of it, and see that clearly, and then understand the causes for softening it. So things like loving kindness, things like being really gentle, things like developing faith, reflecting on your good karma, on the beautiful things that you're doing to bring some gladness to the mind. So anything that helps to undermine the hindrances, because this calcium or whatever that's got in there is basically hindrances, right? Ill will or restlessness or boredom, whatever. So anything that undermines them. Contentment is another really great kind of perception to develop. But I think, give yourself a lot of metta, because it's also a suffering mind. So metta not only softens it, but it also relieves some of that suffering too. Yeah. No, everything's right with punk rock, and especially glam rock, actually. Someone said nothing wrong with it. Correct.
Okay. So I can see the repercussions of the heads of governments acting in ways that are not in the good of the people, such as present-day France, and we in Canada have a great example of a politician who was a great leader. He inspired people across different party lines. Wow. Yeah. How wonderful. It's always nice to hear good news. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yeah. Inspiring leaders. Is another inspiring leader was Jacinda Ardern, who was unfortunately, she also stepped down as Prime Minister of New Zealand because it was she had nothing left in the tank, she said.
I get it.
Strangely enough, not popular in her own country. Some of anyway, never mind that. Okay, so, but very inspiring when a leader is inspiring, the people behind you are uplifted when you hear about, even if you're not from that country, when you hear about inspiring leaders, it just makes your day. Okay, so that Bill has his hand up. Yeah, you can. Oops. Okay. Ask to unmute.
Sorry.
Oh, I've done something.
No, it's fine.
Okay, you can unmute, Bill.
You ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Did I? Okay. So I put in the chat. It was part of what I understand. Nod your head if you can hear me. Nod your head if you can hear me. I'm freezing.
We can hear you, Bill.
Excellent. So part of what I put it in the chat too, part of my understanding regarding the rules is so that the male monks don't try to take advantage of the female monks. Which is why there are extra rules, which I'm not sure if that's your understanding.
Just leave that one out.
So Ayya Soma said that nuns have extra rules so that men don't try and take advantage of nuns. Yeah, actually, a lot of the Vinaya rules that there are just so many more for females was for actually they're just safety. A lot of them are about women's safety because well, it just wasn't safe to be a female living by themselves in India in those days in a forest. So yeah, that is true. I mean, there are a whole heap of extra rules that actually there aren't that many more in the end. Some of them are just broken up or are not really relevant in this day and age. So it's actually not that much more.
But it's interesting to me that when there are a lot of bhikkhu rules, the bhikkhus often say, well, we're just in higher training because nuns only get 10 rules. So the more rules, the better. But when it comes to nuns having more rules, everyone thinks, oh, that's a problem. That means nuns are less. But actually, by the same logic, it should mean that we're in much higher training, isn't it? So I don't know, this is very arbitrary to me because it's really about the basics, you know, it's about learning not to harm oneself or others and performing actions and deeds and restraining ourselves in ways that are for the benefit of oneself and others. And that's really something we have to learn to observe. We can't every time we want to know, kind of get our book out and find out. We have to get the book of our heart out, right? We have to actually learn how to read our own emotions and our own you know, reactions and figure out, as is possible for a human being, whether a particular action is wholesome or not. So it's not about rules. Should I do a question?
Yeah.
All right. I'll do a question from the box. When I started going on meditation retreats, I was quite young, 17. The rules were something I struggled with, not because I was rebellious, but rather the opposite. I was afraid to do something wrong. This brought some tension and performativeness to my body and gestures, which took away from actual mindfulness, I think. Is it possible that the rules can also be limiting in this sense? Yeah, I think this is where we have to apply things in ways that kind of are appropriate to our own conditioning. So one of the things that took me kind of years to understand is that certain traditions, for example, which are very strict on retreats or talk about working really hard or, you know, fighting out your battles and whatever, this is really helpful in countries where people lounge around on deck chairs and are very kind of survive. They don't really, you know, do very much, and maybe, you know, it's hard for them to kind of make it on time. So it's very good in that case if somebody's effort is a little bit weak or they're more inclined to do not quite enough, to say, do a bit more, come on, you know, rouse energy. But if somebody's already very kind of over controlling towards themselves, or like really kind of, what's the word when you kind of monitor yourself all the time? What's that called? You kind of censor yourself or something, something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of you're monitoring yourself, you know, you're always kind of watching yourself and kind of on your own back, really. Then what you need is somebody to say, relax, you know, do a little bit less. So a different approach is needed to bring, you know, the mind to a state of calm clarity. So you're clear, but you're also calm, you're not tense, you're soft. So yeah, I think it can take away from the mindfulness in the sense that you might be adding a little bit too much ill will there. But in the end, it has to become internal, you know. I actually don't think these things are rules. Vinaya means restraint. It doesn't mean rules. It means a training in restraint. So to me, that's not a rule. It's not like a law that we have to abide by. It's a training that we're kind of our own free will, if you like, of our own choice, undertaking. And so we undertake it in a way that's going to actually benefit ourselves, not in a way that's going to oppress. I don't know if that makes sense. Do the rules complement the precepts?
Well,
Rules. I don't like that translation.
well, yes,
They are the precepts
yeah,
extended.
they are the precepts extended. So they are a complement in that they're more precepts. So yes.
It's a refining of the training of Sila, I would say. It's maybe more specified and it's more formalized, precisely to bring a community together in harmony, you know, under the same kind of understandings of how to behave. But it was also something that arose in response to particular situations that occurred in the Buddha's day. So it was very much fluid and contextual and malleable in a way, right?
Because and the Buddha often changed the rule, So he had the rule and someone says, well, what about this situation? Then he says, okay, well, in this situation, you don't have to follow the rule. So it's they're very contextual. They're very contextual. Yeah. Some of them are genuinely, you know, ethical.
Yeah, and in that case,
I mean, a great idea to go around killing people.
Right. I mean, the basic precepts are just general codes of like normal conduct that anybody in the world would agree to, right? Everybody knows it's not good to steal, it's not good to kill, it's not good to, you know, cheat on your partner or whatever. It's pretty reckless if you drink too much, or some would say drink anything if you want a clear mind. You know, it's not going to make you happy and clearer and brighter to take drugs, or, you know, taking drugs is going to distort reality rather than bring you closer to truth that you can observe. So these things are pretty much laws of nature that apply to everybody, and they're the ethical trainings, and the others are again more related to specific communities that undertake to agree to that. Shall we go to Stefano?
Oh, okay. So yeah, Stefano, you can. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Stefano is our local.
Yeah. The friendly neighbor. So
drops in for tea.
Yes. Good to see you. I was just thinking about like a practice, and the practice to me, Buddhist practice, is about being in touch with reality and being very honest with ourselves, because I had this problem as well, the fact that I wanted to be too good and do everything, you know, according to the book. But we have to understand what we can and what we cannot do, because I've damaged my knees twice during long retreats, and it was my fault once. Another time, this teacher said, oh, if it hurts, you have to keep going and watch the pain. But then I damaged the kneecap. So be careful, take it easy. But on the other hand, we can be self-indulgent and not taking things doing things properly. See, so don't try too hard and don't try too little. Yeah, it's my experience. And also the other thing is, with men, we got this kind of like the testosterone driving you to sit harder, do longer. You know, the ego gets involved as well. So I have to be careful with that. Oh, I'm going to sit for 10 hours. The more, you know, we tend to quantify things, and that doesn't really work that way. I think, I don't know, what do I know? But this is my little experience.
I think we all learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I think it also shows why in the gradual training, the sense restraint, which you could say this is about, right? It's about restraint, goes hand in hand with mindfulness, like the two kind of roll around each other and strengthen each other. Because it's only really when we see our minds and the way we're relating to things, you know, and get very aware of our motivations, and am I sitting out of ego or testosterone, or you know, a competitive kind of attitude, or am I actually sitting because it feels like that's going to get my meditation deeper, and it's kind of come about quite naturally through letting go. So we become much more aware of why we're doing what we are. For example, with the Vinaya. In my case, my tummy is really sick, actually, since years and years in Myanmar. So for many years, I've been having some oats in the evening, just a little bit and not anything tasty, just literally oats with a bit of water on top. And, you know, I have to be honest with myself. Am I bending the rule and making it tasty because I'm really like increasing, you know, sense desire, or am I doing it really out of compassion for my body? And, you know, you have to just know these things and be true to yourself. And it doesn't mean always getting it right, as you say, you know, as you said, learning the hard way. I mean, for me, that's an easy one. I think it's much more difficult if it's like a display of different types of chocolate and different types of cheese, which somehow gets through the Vinaya precepts. But always these things should bring us back to ourselves and try to deepen the mindfulness. And I do think it can go against deepening mindfulness if we just take it as rules in a book. It's like we're giving our power and our authority and our own inner wisdom away to some kind of external authority that we maybe don't really understand. So it has to kind of increase every aspect of the path, and ultimately, you know, that kind of inner assurance as to one's own virtue and integrity. So you know why you're doing what you're doing, right? Sampajanya, knowing the purpose of these things.
In the end, it's for our own benefit. And if it's not serving that, serving your growth in the path, then you're not holding it well.
Yeah. Or if it's hurting others, because I think another thing that can happen with the Vinaya sometimes, especially, I think this is usually when the practice is not so mature. So especially it's more common with younger monastics. We start to impose the training rules on others. So it's like that person isn't strict. That person did that wrong and they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that, you know, and it's not for that. It's not for, you know, telling other people about stuff, because that's actually not leading to the benefit of others, right? That's increasing their suffering. So it should benefit us and it should benefit everyone else. So don't start to be a preacher. It's not very not very inspiring. Want to read that one?
Okay. So this is from Richard. I love very much the Uposita days and trying to keep the 8 precepts. It always makes me happy. Sad. That's so nice. That's so nice. Yes. Because you don't have to, you know, be busy with the world. How nice. Have to. So I agree.
Actually, that's really important, that it should lead to happiness. That shows that, you know, you are holding them well, because the whole point of the path is that the Buddha's trying to lead us out of suffering. So if it's not really the path. You know, it should lead to happiness. And if it's not, the other thing you can do is try to tune into the happiness that is inherent in living a virtuous life. Sometimes we live a virtuous life, but we don't notice the happiness because it's a kind of very refined thing. Sometimes it's the happiness of non-remorse or non-regret, which you might not notice as happiness. But if you do something that you then regret, you'll see the difference, you know. The mind will be really tied up with that and kind of guilty and feeling horrible about itself. Sometimes just noticing the lack of the afflictive emotions is another cause for rejoicing, I think.
So, could you please say something about monastic vocation? Have you always known that you wanted to be in a monastery? So that's from Agata. Wow. Had you always something about, how to summarize that? Something about the monastic vocation. I'm not sure exactly what you want to know, because you could say a lot.
Have you always known? Yes or no?
Have you always known? I think it's not always, it's not always very clear. But there is a calling. There is a calling. Whether it's, I'm thinking of the other nuns in the monastery in Perth as well. I'm sure none of them thought they would be nuns when they were 15 years old. So it's not necessarily something that you've always known. But for some it is, like Venerable Canda, she always wanted to do
Well,
nothing
since I
else.
knew about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't being in a monastery. That is very different to me from renouncing and deepening the practice. It was nothing to do with wanting to be anywhere or wanting to be anything. It was to do with wanting to get out of suffering. And maybe I was lucky to come to the practice in Asia, where in my first retreat, the teacher was talking about, well, you know, if you really want to commit your whole life to the practice, of course, being a monk or a nun is bound to, you know, be the best path, basically. And I was like, what? None? That's the thing. And I kind of knew it was, right? Because I sort of had heard of these things. But that was it. I knew I want to make the Dhamma the central point in my life. So it was just the obvious thing. But it wasn't about becoming something. It was just about gradually letting go of more. And it took several years, probably anyway, it would have taken 2 or 3 years of practice and service to feel actually ready. I think by 23 I was really ready. And even people in Burma were telling me, just stay, just join the monastery. It was obvious. That was my interest, but still took a lot longer to actually find a place to ordain. So in that sense, a monastery was necessary to have the conditions to ordain. But, you know, you never get what you wanted either, because it is actually renunciation. So when you renounce, you're not getting what you thought you were getting. You're not getting anything, actually. You are choosing not to have control. You're actually choosing not to make wanting the driving force of your life. But you're actually sort of saying, right, I'm giving my life to the Dhamma. Let me see where I'm best placed to serve or where I'm best placed to practice. And I've had to say that to myself at times, for example, when my visa ran out in Myanmar, and they wouldn't renew it again, even though it was supposed to be renewable. And I had to go to India. What a shame. I love India. So it was great because I got to go back to India, which is, to me, my motherland, actually, spiritually. I spent about at least 7 years there across 15. So most of my 15 years was in India. And I went there and was on a retreat. And I remember having this moment of total acceptance. I was like, well, you know, if I'm meant to be back to Burma, let me go. Let the Dhamma just put me in the best place to grow in Dhamma. And I just had this total peace about whether I'd get the visa or not, you know, because it was very, with that sort of regime, there's nothing logical or fair. It's a dictatorship, right? So if they decide to give you one, they do. And if not, not. So yeah, I kind of, that was an intention in a way, to have less control. Does that make sense? Shall we ask Sean to speak?
Yes, please go ahead, Sean.
Hello.
Hello.
Two questions I have off topic from the Sutta, but one is kind of like a minor thing, but it keeps playing on my mind. So I have these aphids that are eating plants and things I have, and they kill a lot of my nice plants, and sometimes I have time to cure them, whatever. And I never know. I mean, and the same with things like snails and slugs, but particularly aphids at the moment. I feel like it's killing my plants and the plants. But at the same time, I don't really want to kill. Obviously, you know, part of the precepts is not to kill. So that's one question I've got. And then just the second completely separate question was, excuse me, this morning I heard a bit of, is it Ajahn Daton? I don't know how to say his name. He was.
I wonder if we should answer the first one first. What do you
And then you can go, yeah, okay.
me? Because I would probably forget both.
Yes.
All right, you go for the first one.
Okay.
You wanna go?
Okay. So this first one is what all Buddhists struggle with, because there are cockroaches in the house and snails and slugs are eating your vegetables, and birds that eat all the figs before you get to them. But I've heard on many occasions, more than once, from different people, that they talk to the animals, and you know, there are even parittas. So you know, like the Kanda paritta, which is saying, please leave please you
Go
could
away.
go away. You could, a Chinese nun said she saw with her own eyes a sign in Chinese in front of one side of the vegetable patch for the insect saying, for the slug saying, this is yours, don't touch the other side. And true enough, one side was eaten and the other wasn't.
Wow.
This is, I mean, she's a nun, so I'm sure she doesn't lie. So that's what she said. She saw a sign. This side is yours, this side is ours. It's
Wow.
written in Chinese, so there must have been Chinese slugs.
Oh, funny. That makes sense
Yeah.
about water. You know, this thing about water. I just wonder how much of life is sort of this energetic field, and you know, it's like the meaning or the energy of the words that comes through, because there's this thing about water. What's that documentary called? Water, the Great Something. You have to see it. It's all these Japanese and
Oh,
other
yeah, the crystals.
crystals, yeah.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
put, for example, rice in one glass of water, and then, well, say in 3 glasses of water, and on one you write the word love, on another one you just ignore it, and on the other one you write the word hate or something like that, and you have these 3 and you see what happens. And the one with love, and that you kind of, yeah, I think the word love is there, it becomes kind of fermented. The one that you ignore becomes moldy, and the one that says hate becomes kind of black and yucky. And other people have experimented. I mean, watch it properly, because you can't do the experiment unless you get the details. But it's really incredible, you know, like, is there an energy because of the association with those words? It's very fascinating, but that's an aside anyway.
Yeah. But yeah,
That's an aside.
talk to the aphids. Try
That's right.
slugs.
Huh. Look, I talked to the ants in my house. I asked them to leave. They stayed.
Maybe they're Chinese.
There is the Kanda Paritta. I mean, in monastics chant this all the time, the Kanda Paritta, for insects and big and small animals that could come and disturb you. So,
But also you could try and put your plants somewhere that then less likely to come. I don't know how that might work. Or is there something that would just kind of not kill them, but kind of move them off or detract them in some way?
yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just very difficult. Very. Yeah. But I can. Yeah. Should I ask my other question, or did you want to read the comments?
Oh,
Somebody
you
just said,
Grace
Grace,
had a suggestion. Unleashing ladybugs on them.
ladybirds, we call it in England.
Oh.
Yeah. Ladybirds. We
Ladybugs.
don't have so many these days.
Oh yes, actually, I actually did just read that potentially, yeah, they help ladybirds. But then I think I might have an invasion of ladybirds.
Yeah. Should we just read out the other comments related to that? Because I do like to include everybody's comments. Pick the snails and put them somewhere away from your garden. That's what I do.
I know, really.
And then someone saying, unfortunately, I'm not a nun, so asking and pleading doesn't work for me. I don't think that's really matters if you're a nun or not. But yeah, I know what you mean. I've made my peace with mosquitoes. I've let them bite me whenever they want. It's only a tiny speck of blood. Anyway, I have plenty, and they've stopped biting me. I also have a feral cat that comes every day, and she has fleas. I'm presuming she has more than one. If I put flea medication on her, that's killing the fleas. Yeah, of course, but you have to always kind of consider what's the most compassionate thing to do all around. So, you know, sometimes we have to accept that as human beings, we can't live completely harmless lives. That's the nature of samsara. And the real solution, actually, if you really want to be harmless, is to get out of samsara. It's actually the only solution in the end. So we can minimize harm, but we can't actually prevent it completely. It's impossible. I mean, otherwise you won't take antibiotics, you won't take anything, right? A monk that I know said he did a lot of metta to some mice who were in his kuti. They didn't come during the vasa. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it may or may not work, but I do think life is very imperfect. Anyway, shall we let Sean read his say his second? We've only got a few minutes, like 3 minutes.
Yes, so the second one was yeah, I listened this morning. Is it Ajahn? I don't know how to say his name. The turn, he's from Thailand. He was under Ajahn Chah. He was at one of the Australian monasteries speaking. Do you know who I'm referring to?
Because you can't say his name.
It's DTUN. DTUN.
Oh, Done.
Oh, yes, yes,
Done,
yes,
done.
yes. You would
See?
have been-
Okay. And anyway, he said that one thing that's very important, and I've read something else he said as well, is to reflect upon death and things like that, and do it in your meditation. And I do remember, Venerable Canda, you saying that this was something you did for a long time. If you could maybe give some suggestions on how to do that within a meditation.
What was that last part?
So that he said to reflect upon death in your meditation particularly. So I was wondering, I think you've done a lot of this, so if you had some suggestions on exactly how to do that within meditation.
That's quite a big topic. I don't know that I've done it a lot.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's very helpful to practice death meditation from time to time. Even at the beginning of a sit, it can be done. But you were doing that just this morning, so maybe you should say what you did.
Well, I think it's important to find something that works for you. So you could have a formula, but if it doesn't strike your heart, it's not very useful. So you have to find something for yourself, some kind of reflection, imagination that strikes you personally. So there are, formulas, but I for myself have invented my own way of reflecting that makes me, the result is that I go like, why am I worried about this? This is not worth getting upset over. So personally, I reflect on I have like samsara, how extremely many long lifetimes I have had. I have done this before many times. For me, it's like, don't worry about it. Kind of, it has that effect on me. So am I going to keep doing this for the rest of samsara, getting upset about this ridiculous thing? In 20 million lifetimes, I'll be upset about the same thing. Thanks, that's all right. Yeah. So whatever catches your imagination and helps you to have that perspective of it's yeah.
Not worth getting het up about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that Ajahn Brahmali's death contemplations are really nice. But also I like to do one where I'm kind of imagining myself kind of dying, and then also even go to the point where I'm dead and imagine yourself just lying in this coffin or lying on the ground and you see yourself there like dead, and it really brings home that this is going to be your future, right? You're going to be dead. And then imagine from that perspective, looking at your life a little bit and thinking what really mattered in my life. Like, what did I do or not do that was really important? Like, what are those key qualities that I can reflect and feel happy about or not so happy about in my life? And it just seems to put things in perspective. And you can do that with other people that have died, maybe somebody that was very dear, but not too dear, not who you're going to have a lot of grief arising for, but you just imagine them too, imagine them alive, talking, chatting, all their friends, their family, and then, and then remembering them sick and remembering them dead. If you've seen them or if you've seen their coffin or been to their funeral, you imagine that, and you imagine also what they did, the kind of things that they valued, the people that they loved, and yeah, the fact that just like they were so alive at one point, we have that life in us now, but eventually we too will be dead. So what do we really want to do with our lives? I think, yeah, like you say, is that perspective, isn't it, that it gives, that can be so sobering and really yeah, help us to prioritize or reprioritize our lives, and also love more, right? Love the people that are in our lives. It's not like, okay, my life's gonna end, there's no point kind of with this or with that. It might actually mean, yeah, you can do what you do, but do it with more love, or do it with less attachment to outcome. If you're very busy, you've got too many responsibilities, like, yeah, you can maybe do a bit less, but just do it better. Like Mother Teresa said something like, was it Mother Teresa? We're not asked to do great things, we're asked to do small things with great love. And that's so wonderful. So it's like, how do you want people to remember you? Yeah. Oh, look at that. I wear t-shirts with skulls on to remind me of impermanence. It helps me live life with appreciation. So yay, get creative. That's, yeah. I've seen some of your cool wear, and yeah, it's cool because it kind of brings you out. It brings other people out as well. It's like, whoa, what's that? Cool. All right, it's actually time over, but we still have Munoi.
Okay.
We usually give 5 minutes.
Okay.
We had a rich class, and we got through a whole one paragraph.
It was a very important, very full one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quantity, not quality.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Thank you, everybody. That was really
thank you
very
for taking the lead and all your wisdom and interesting ways of presenting your understanding that are engaging. Refreshing.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a wonderful sutta discussion, Venerables. And as you know, today's discussion was offered on a donation basis and in the spirit of generosity. Any contribution that you will be able to make will be gratefully received, and they'll be able to help in the viharas, day-to-day runnings, and also, this is very important, it is for development of England's first monastery where women can train towards full bhikkhuni ordination. So I'll add a link in the chat. So that is the donation link. And also, if you are capable, you can provide a food dana to Venerables by visiting the vihara. And there are several more ways to get involved. By getting into a couple of WhatsApp groups that provide when there's no bookings for dana made, or one of volunteering for various work at Vihara, or a weekly supermarket delivery. So these are organized by our email address team@anukampaproject.org, and you can contact that, and one of our volunteers will guide us on that. Thank you very much. And also, please look at the events in the website and in the Facebook. All those events are updated there, and hopefully you would have got the latest newsletter as well. It has a lot of links and the events as well. Thank you.
Can I add specifically that there'll be a one-day retreat on Sunday by myself in London, and my non-self, and the following week online one-day retreat, which you can come to whatever time zone you're in, because I don't think anyone's going to mind if you're not there the whole day. And of course, Ajahn Brahmali's events, which we really want you to book up for, because I know many of you want to come, but no one's booked. And it does freak us out a bit on our end, because there's only like 3 or 4 people in some of those talks. And I'm like, we got to pay however much to the venue, but not really that. It's more that poor Ajahn Brahmali, we want him to like come and feel really kind of, yeah, like people are eager to hear more about early Buddhism from a great meditator and scholar monk. So we really want to make him feel welcome. So if you are intending to come, or even not yet, please find out more about that. And yeah, you're very welcome. There's many events, some in Oxford, some in one in Bristol, Sheffield, where else? London, etc. So they'll be recorded too, but you know, it's not the same. So hope you can come along. Yay. That's it. Thank you, everybody. And we can unmute you. It's lovely to see the three of you there. Daniel, Liam, and Erica. Look at them.